Hello, everybody. It is great to be here today. My name is Gary Fowler, and I am the CEO, President, and co-founder of GSD Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a serial entrepreneur with 17 startups under my belt and 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Yva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. We believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. So with that, I'd like to introduce my guest, Mark Edwards. He's a chief executive officer at ViewMind. He's a serial entrepreneur, an investor. He loves living to 150, and we're going to talk about, digital biomarkers for evidence-based disease management of neurodegenerative disorders. So degenerative disorders. Mark's got a robust background all the way from Birmingham, Birmingham, England, and all the way around the world today. So he's in New York City. So with that, Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hi there, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, I'm still alive.
That's good to hear.
It's kind of weird when you're reading your own. I'll tell the audience out there. So I just, talk about fake news. Somebody misreported that I passed away, and so I thought it was a joke, and then I saw my picture on the internet with all kinds of different pictures of me, and then it was like each one of the articles got a little worse, Mark, to the point that I'm not that good. You know what I mean? I got to tell you, it's like I wish it was me, but like I actually feel really good because now I understand what it might be like.
Well, we're past April the 1st now, aren't we?
Yeah, we're past Easter. I feel like I'm resurrected. Yeah. And so Mark, tell me a little bit about it. You grew up in Birmingham, right? I've been to Birmingham. How did you come around? So you work with HP as a group product manager. So how do you go from Birmingham to you're in New York today, right?
Yes.
How did you do that?
Well, it's not a direct journey. It's sort of there's a number of steps along the way. But I started off working for Hewlett Packard in Bristol, and Hewlett Packard at that time ran 60 different autonomous divisions, and I had a global responsibility for a set of products, mass storage products, and it was a very exciting company to work for, and so I was there about 5 years, and initially it was mostly in the hardware area, and then I started working with hardware and software. And once I got the taste for software, I thought really there's a lot of advantages of being in the software space. You can just have an idea for some features, you can implement them, and you can bring them to market very much more quickly than you can in the hardware market. But with hardware, it seems like you always have either too much or not enough of it. And so from there, I thought, well, let me learn a little bit about software. And I joined Microsoft and became the head of Windows in the UK and Ireland, and launched this thing called Windows. This is around the Windows 3.0, going up to Windows 95 time. And then really experienced that whole huge tornado of growth, and with all the different successive versions of Windows. And from there, I started a company. That was my first foray into entrepreneurship, and that again, it was a global business. We were selling in 15 countries. The software, it was multimedia software. We became actually the 5th best-selling software in the US in November 1995, one down from Netscape Navigator, I remember, and that really opened up lots of possibilities. And I was an executive vice president of Symbian, the operating system company, and an opportunity came up in the US to run a startup, a pre-revenue startup called Information, which is a mobile device management company. And I thought it was an exciting technology, and I jumped at the chance, moved the family here, and grew the business from pre-revenue to over 50 million. And then we've been here ever since.
Wow. Now, how was it? So when you were at HP, 86 to 90, what was that? The HP 3000 or was it the 3000, right?
Yeah.
What happened with HP? Because HP and DEC and Digital Equipment Corporation, they were really the leaders. And even Sun Microsystems, which came a little bit later and took off. What happened with HP?
Well, HP is a huge company, still is a very preeminent company in the market. I mean, a lot of the mini computers really, I guess you could say you had different flavors at different points in time. You had, if you go back a little bit further, before then, you had, it was mostly mainframe based, IBM mainframes, S series mainframes, and so on. And then you had these very powerful, let's say, mini computers, and you had more of a distributed architecture. And then the desktop, powerful, and more was being pushed to the edge of the network. And then from there, I guess you had, then you moved into the mobile space, and then mobiles could do less. So more was going back into the center again, into the cloud. And so you've had this kind of process, through time where the center of gravity is shifted from let's say from the cloud to the computer, or the centralized computer to the desktop, or to the hand if it's a mobile device, really depending on what were the constraints at that point in time. The constraints in terms of the applications that people wanted to use, the amount of data that was required, and the bandwidth of the connection that was available.
Yeah, it's amazing because you remember at the time, as we go through these transitions, I remember HP when the mini side, and Digital Equipment Corporation, which doesn't exist. It is HP now, right? Because Compaq was bought by Hewlett Packard. But it's amazing how fast things transition, right? And so as you went down through, those were when you were at Microsoft, right? So you were at Microsoft at the premium time. I mean, if you bought shares of Microsoft at that time, you made a lot of money, didn't you?
Yes.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
Those were the days. And so how much, as you're going down through your career, what did you focus on? Did you focus on stock and equity? Because when you're working with a company like HP, right, you got a great secure job, or at least at that time you did. And did you focus on the job? Did you focus on shares? What was a driving force coming into a company like HP and then to Microsoft?
Yeah, I think in the case of HP, it was really two things. One was the experience of working for a very dynamic entrepreneurial company, which HP was, and it was really the culture. I was at that time, the companies to work for were DEC, IBM, HP, and so on, and I really liked the feel of the culture, the people that I met, and so I thought it was a good place to start my career. And it was a great opportunity. I mean, there were really talented people I was working with. We had global responsibility based from the UK. And as a young guy, sort of in my early 20s, I was traveling all around the world, in Asia, Japan, in the US, and growing this product line. And we were very successful. We turned a business that was, when I joined, about a $30-40 million business into something that was doing $500 million of revenue, after about sort of 5 or 6 years.
Wow, that's a great story. So, what made you decide? I'm just curious. Why would you go from HP to Microsoft? What made you do the jump?
Well, it was really what I was mentioning before, that in the hardware space, if you have an idea for something, it's going to take you maybe 12-18 months to get to market, because there are such long lead times to fabricate the hardware. I mean, it's faster today than it was, but it's there's still it still takes longer to do things in hardware. So I was attracted by two things. One, software, just the flexibility and the higher margins of that type of business. I also felt that the future of computing was putting more power in the desktop in the hands of the user, as opposed to being centralized. And I was a user myself, a very early user of Windows. I used Windows 2.0 or 286 as it was, and I felt like this is going to be the future of computing, and that's what drew me to Microsoft. And I ended up joining as the head of Windows. in the UK and Ireland. So I was in product management. I was running product management in that region, and part of the global team, working closely with colleagues in Redmond. And it was a very exciting time, obviously. I mean, when I joined...
those were the most exciting times,
yes,
right?
Yeah, it's very, very exciting. I mean, Windows market share was under 5% at that point. And within a couple of years, it was over 95%. So it was a meteoric rise in adoption.
And the stock price too, I'm sure.
Yes, that's always a good thing. At that time I didn't really know. I guess maybe I was a little at that point I didn't know that much about stock and investors and venture capitalists and so on. But obviously it opened up my eyes. I mean, it was obviously interesting being at Microsoft. You're right in the middle of this ecosystem that was building very rapidly. And so you got to saw everything going on, all the PC manufacturers, all the hardware side, all the different applications and software that were being developed, services, the very nascent stage of the internet. Mm-hmm. I remember doing a deal with British Telecom to include some drivers in Windows that would allow direct access to an ISDN network, which, it was a 64K kilobits a second network, 128K, I think, if you had 2 lines, and that was a huge big deal. And that started.
I remember those. I remember we used to have those modems that plugged into the computer. Remember those?
I remember them.
You would buy those cards and you would plug them in, and you had faxing capabilities and voicemail and all that, and it was a big deal, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I was very much involved in the early stages of networking being built into the computer, because actually in the UK we were very successful with the first networking version of Windows. So Windows for Workgroups, if anybody remembers that, 3.11. We actually sold more in the UK than Microsoft sold in the US at that time.
Wow, that's amazing.
And, it became the preeminent version of Windows in the UK and the best version of Windows for everybody. And so,
why was that? Why did you sell more in the UK than the US?
Well, we had a slightly different strategy, and in the US it was sort of positioned as Microsoft's a networking version of Windows. In the UK, we positioned it as the best version of Windows for everybody. So the campaign was almost Windows 4.0 in all but name. And that's what appeared in every publication, every magazine. We got the front covers of all the magazines, and they all said Windows 4.0 in all but name. And it really was, because it had a lot of the components of Windows 95 in Windows for Workgroups. For example, like the 32-bit file system that made Windows perform 2 to 18 times faster when transferring files to your storage.
Wow.
So that was the reason. We got all the OEMs to pre-install it, and then it just became the de facto version of Windows in the UK.
That's amazing. So you went down through, and MDS Global, ILS Networks, you were CEO and chairman, a mobile video and IMS platform. Then you went over to Henley. What made you decide to go from working in the startups to investing? You made the transition to Henley. You were there 3 years. Investment company and technology. What made you decide to make that switch? Yeah,
so I think this I felt like I've learned obviously a lot through my career in terms of how to grow companies at different stages, both mid-sized companies and complete startups with no revenue. And I wanted to try and help entrepreneurs realize their dreams. And so I really had a very active investing approach, where I wouldn't be passively investing. I would invest, and then I would be quite actively involved in helping those companies, advising them in terms of how to develop and how to grow their companies. And so that was the transition, I guess. And I enjoyed doing that. I still have involvement with a number of companies that I've invested in, and I'm the chairman of a few startups that I've backed. But after doing that for a while, I really missed the hands-on, and there's nothing like I love actually being an operator and really taking your logo. You said get shit done. I like getting shit done. So I'm somebody who actually likes making things happen, and so that's really what drew me back into into a company.
So you did the Henley, and then what made you decide? So you moved to New York then, right? Because at Henley you weren't in New York, correct?
Yeah, I have been in New York area for the last 18 years. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What made you decide? Where did you make the jump? I mean, because there's I lived in the UK for a while. There's definite cultural differences, right? I didn't know what a pint at the pub was until I got over there, and I never understood how you could have a mug at the pub. I remember we were going into the pubs, and the guys had their mugs up there. I said, "Wait a second, what are you talking about?"
Yeah.
But their mugs were hanging there, and so when you came over, what made you decide to come over to the States, and how was it for you?
Yeah, so it wasn't perhaps such a big leap of in terms of cultural change for me, because right from the beginning of my career, when I was at Hewlett-Packard, I was in the US every month or every couple of months. I was around, different places in the world. So I was very familiar with, let's say, American culture. So that really wasn't so much of a change. I think I always was attracted to the American business culture because it's so entrepreneurial. You can really have an idea and makes big things happen. Americans dream bigger than anybody else, and it really has a lot of immigrants in the US as well. So I'm not unique. There's so many different people from different parts of the world in Silicon Valley, in different parts of the US, who've built a lot of these tech businesses. So I felt attracted to that, and that's the thing that drew me to move here with my family. And I wanted, really the experience of living in the US as well. And I didn't want to look back and if you like, have regrets that I never did that. So those were some of the reasons. And obviously I haven't looked back. I've been here 18 years and I love it.
Nah, it's great. So, let's fast forward. Let's talk about, so you went to Oculi, which is a sensing and processing unit, real-time vision intelligence, moving up through track with these, and then you went into ViewMind. So how did you get into ViewMind, and tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I got into ViewMind really by happenstance, in the sense that I was invited by the Chamber of Commerce in Argentina to go and do a visit there, and do various presentations in some different cities, and meet with a number of companies, meet with the boards of different companies, and advise them about internationalizing their business. And I did that. One of the companies I met was ViewMind, and this was maybe 3.5, 4 years ago. And I thought, wow, this has huge potential. This is a very scalable business. It's a software business using artificial intelligence to measure the health of our brains. And really, we don't really think a lot about brain health today, or at least only we think about it if there's an issue and something needs
stroke or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's.
Yeah, exactly. Then obviously it's top of mind. But today we put more focus in terms of preventative health on our teeth, on our blood pressure, on all sorts of different aspects of health than we really do about our brains. And it's for good reasons that I understand a lot better now than I did, a number of years ago. But having met with a company, they initially invited me to be the chairman. So I came in as a chairman and a founder, because I also invested in the company. And then from there, after really helping the business evolve over a few years as the chairman, it made sense for me to join and step in as the CEO. And the team was really keen for me to do that, and I've been loving it ever since.
No, that's super. So tell us a little bit about it. You're using digital biomarkers for evidence-based disease management. What do you do about how do you manage those diseases, and how are we going to live to 150? I know that the target now is 150. So once you understand the biomarkers and diseases, how do we address those neurodegenerative disorders in order to make the world a better place, and personally a better quality of life?
Okay, well, let's start with the first point about 150 years and longevity. There's a lot of interest in extending lifespan, but we also need to make sure that we have extended health span, which means that we're healthy. There's really no point in living for 150 years if we're unhealthy for half of it, or for a big percentage of it, if we've got debilitating diseases. Now, we also need to consider brain health span, because our brain, if we don't look after it, if we don't take measures to keep it in good order, we don't want to also find that we live for 150 years, we have good health span, we're healthy, but our mind, our faculties are impaired. We can't remember things, we can't process information. And so that's really what I'm concerned about, or what we're doing with ViewMind is really giving us much better ability to understand brain health. If you consider, how do we kind of understand brain health today? How would you, Gary? I mean, if you wanted to understand, some sort of, if you had some concern, you'd go to the doctor, maybe you get referred to a consultant. They're probably going to do two things. Firstly, they're going to do some pen and paper tests, which were invented 100 years ago to assess cognition, a multi-choice questionnaire. They're as good as you would imagine that they would be, based on the method. The results vary depending on who's giving the test. Alternatively, you would get some sort of brain scans. You might get a PET scan looking for certain proteins in the brain, an MRI to image the brain, or it could be a lumbar puncture, taking spinal fluid, which is clearly a very painful process, and analyzing that fluid. And those are the kinds of tests that are available today. And so no doctor is going to prescribe those tests unless you already have an impairment.
Right.
And probably, if you have an impairment, it's not the first thing that you're going to think to do is to go to the doctor. It's probably going to take maybe you're probably going to have experienced those symptoms for some time, or maybe family members are going to start to make comments, really think you should go to the doctor before you would actually take that step and go.
Right. Yeah, because you don't look at it preventative, right?
You don't look at it preventatively. Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, the brain is super powerful at working around issues. You have an impairment in one part of the brain can kind of work around that for quite a long period of time until it can't. And by that time, there could be, quite a significant amount of deterioration that's taken place, that maybe, gets more difficult, if not impossible, to reverse. So we really feel, the earlier that you can take control, be proactive about brain health, and get that early visibility, the better. So what we've done is developed a technology which accesses brain health information through the eye, through eye movements. The eye is anatomically part of the brain, and the eye movement patterns adjust in a reproducible way based on alterations in cognition and in brain health in different areas of the brain. And so what we've done is devised a technology where we expose the eye to a visual stimulus. These stimulus activate particular areas of the brain. We then capture the eye movement responses. An exercise could take 2 to 4 minutes. The data will then be stored on a computer. We perhaps will do a second or third assessment to activate a different area of the brain. And in the space of 15 minutes, we will have 100,000 data points. We feed that into an artificial intelligence system in the cloud, and that is able to analyze the patient's data and correlate to particular neurodegenerative disorders.
No, that's fantastic. Do you have any out there now that are being tested, or what stage are you in?
Yeah, so we're in the revenue stage. We have deployments in hospitals. We have regulatory approval in certain regions. For example, in Europe, we have the CE mark. We have ANMAT approval for Latin America. We're in the process of getting the FDA approval at the moment. We hope to get it towards the end of this year. We do have some deployments in certain hospital locations, and we are deploying in further hospitals in the US to do some research studies at the moment. And so it's kind of a growing thing, all the time. Each month, there's more and more deployments taking place.
Well, that's super. And so what are you trying to do today? Are you raising money, or where are you in terms of the state of the company right now?
Yeah, we are raising money. We're kind of at a point where we want to sort of do a growth financing to really fuel growth. So we had a first quarter of revenue, so good first quarter. Pretty excited about what we achieved.
Is it recurring revenue, Mark? Can you see month over month growth, or how does it work?
Yeah, the model is a recurring model. Once a patient gets assessed, I mean, one of the things that's really unique about what we're doing is that we don't want to be positioned as a diagnostic solution, because really what we're doing is, for somebody who has some sort of neurological issue and they're getting a treatment, we can measure and identify changes in cognition and motor function very, very sensitively in short periods of time based on their medication. And
Wow.
so in a period of weeks or maybe a quarter, we can see changes. And those changes can help a physician to modify the treatment or modify the dosage of the drugs that they're giving the patient. So evidence-based disease management is really our key focus. So our business model grows based on patients starting to get tested repeatedly, probably for the rest of their life, as long as they're on a particular treatment. As new patients get added, that obviously grows the business model as well. And as we add additional indications, then the business also grows on the back of that. So, right now we're focusing on neurodegenerative disorders where there are treatments. So multiple sclerosis is a key area that we're focusing on.
How much difference does it make? Let's say somebody has multiple sclerosis. What are you going to do for that patient? Like, exactly, you identify that they've got it, but how can they fix it? Is there any way, any remedy? Are there any remedies for it?
Yeah. So, we're not diagnosing it. Let's assume that they've been diagnosed, already. But what we're able to do is that, in the case of multiple sclerosis, the disease has different stages, and the most common stage is called relapsing remitting. 85% of people start in that stage, and the disease, inflammations occur, and then it remits back to normal, and then flare-ups occur again, and then it remits back, and so on. Eventually, they will transition to a secondary progressive stage. And this is after maybe 10, 15, 20, 25 years, they will transition. And then the disease is in a non-state, let's say all of the time.
Yeah.
And there are different drugs for the different stages, and they work very differently. And it's very important to get the right drug in the right stage. If you can get the drug early in the stage, maybe you're going to either delay or prevent the transition to the next stage. And there are 17 FDA-approved drugs for multiple sclerosis. And so really what we're doing is we're providing the physician the data, the objective data they need to make good choices, the best possible choices about how is the treatment, how is the patient responding to that treatment? And do they need a different drug? Do they need a different dosage? And we can also identify when that transition is taking place between the different stages. Currently, it takes 2 to 4 years on average to identify that transition to a new stage, and we can capture it, more immediately. So it can have a huge impact in terms of, the patient getting the right drug at the right time, leading to better patient outcomes, and making better use of the resources of the payers as well.
So I've an audience. My audience is from all over the world, investors, family offices, etc. So what are you looking for? And are you looking for partnerships? Reach out to them. You never can imagine, or you can't imagine how they will respond back, right? So what are you looking for? Raising funds? Is this a pre-seed seed? What are you looking to raise this time? And what kind of partnerships, etc., could people be interested in?
Yeah, so I guess there's really two things that we are particularly interested in at this time. One is partnerships and collaborations in different markets, different countries, with hospitals, with neurologists. So that's one key focus for us. We also have done studies in Alzheimer's and MCI. We've done studies in long COVID. We've just won a 1.36 million euro grant in Luxembourg in the area of long COVID. We're doing the studies in Parkinson's, as well. So the technology is very extensible to a number of different areas. And but MS is our first sort of focus area. On the financing, we're looking to raise a 10 million round, plus or minus. we do have quite a bit of interest. We're really looking for good partners that can, particularly if they can add value, if they have access, contacts and a network that can help us access certain markets. That is very interesting. We're looking for, a lead investor at the moment, and we have quite a bit of interest, I think, that could fill out the syndicate in the round as well.
No, that's super. So closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, well, I think we're about to go through a new a revolution in terms of the way we think about brain health, the way that we're going to be more proactive about brain health. Some of the same changes that took place some decades ago in terms of the cardiovascular space, or certain cancers that are now diagnosed much earlier and more preventative if you tackle things at an earlier stage. We really have breakthrough technology. It's the highest sensitivity and specificity in the world. We're looking for collaboration with different parties. If you want to get hold of me, best way is to email me at mark.edwards, EDWARDS @viewmind.com. That's the best way. If you're interested in getting more information about the company, viewmind.com is our website, and we have a LinkedIn site as well, and you can follow us on our LinkedIn page also. No,
it's great. Mark, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. The people always want to live longer. We talked about it, we talk about it, and 100 was a bar, then 125 is a bar, and now 150. So it's about the quality of life and not about the quantity. It's about how we can live better and enjoy our lives and have a fulfilling life. So areas like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and all kinds of neurodegenerative disorders, we need to address those so we have a better quality of life. So I want to thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule. I want to thank my entire guests from all over the world that listen to the show. Stay tuned, because we'll have another exciting edition of GSD Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech, and I'm your host, Gary Fowler. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy, and I'll see you soon, and keep smiling. Thank you very much, and see you.
Thank you, Gary.